Until 2018, the official story was that the 1973 Yom Kippur War was precipitated by a surprise attack by Egypt against Israel, which was unexpected by either Israel or the US. If that were true, then it would contradict my hypothesis that a state overestimates the resolve of its adversaries when happiness levels are rising in the national legislature, as they were in the US Congress in 1973, and when the leader or his close advisors have non-depressive temperaments, as in the Nixon White House. Nixon's Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, also had a non-depressive temperament, according to a psycholinguistic analysis of his speeches. However, in 2018, archival evidence has come to light which indicates that in the first half of 1973, before the attack, Kissinger held secret meetings with the Egyptian National Security Advisor Mohammed Hafez Ismail in Paris and in New York, in which he gave the green light to Egypt to attack Israel without harming U.S.-Egyptian diplomatic relations. The reason that Kissinger did this was to attempt to displace Soviet influence in the Middle East. Furthermore, not only is it evident that the U.S. did not underestimate Egyptian resolve, but also that the U.S. actually overestimated it, since the U.S. expected the Egyptian forces to advance deep into the Sinai after the crossing of the Suez Canal, instead of halting at the canal as they actually did, which prompted an Israeli counterattack that was only repelled when the Soviets airlifted massive amounts of military equipment to the Egyptians. This almost stymied the American plan to displace Soviet influence in the region. As with the Yom Kippur War, the initial conventional wisdom was that the U.S. was completely blindsided by the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan on December 24, 1979. If this were true, it would contradict my hypothesis, since the happiness levels in Congress were on an upward trend at the time, and, as we see in this chart, President Carter had a non-depressive temperament, as indicated by psycholinguistic analysis of his State of the Union addresses. However, in a 1998 interview with Le Nouvel Observateur, Zbigniew Brzezinski, President Carter's national security advisor in 1979, revealed that prior to the invasion, and starting in July of 1979, the U.S. had been providing secret aid to the Afghan rebels, the Mujahideen, with the intention of provoking the Soviet Union into invading Afghanistan and ultimately becoming embroiled in an expensive, deadly quagmire there, similar to the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Interestingly, whereas Brzezinski, who had a non-depressive temperament, supported the plan to provide aid to the Mujahideen and provoke the Soviets into invading Afghanistan, Cyrus Vance, Secretary of State, who had a more depressive temperament based on a psycholinguistic analysis of his speeches, did not support the plan, but rather advocated a wait-and-see approach. It is evident that, far from underestimating Soviet resolve, the U.S. actually overestimated it, since the U.S. was of the view that the Soviets would never leave Afghanistan pursuant to a negotiated settlement, whereas it turned out that the Soviets eventually left 9 years later pursuant to the terms of the Geneva Accords of 1988.